Hey you guys, I just wanted to share with you a video of how I do what is called my push technique. Thank you to Judy, one of my Patreon students, for naming it the push technique. And here's why it's called the push technique. I use clear water to push into my granulating paints to create textures. And I often use this technique when I'm painting tabby cats because it's perfect for creating stripes. But in the case of this painting, I used it to create a interesting yet soft and supporting background for the cats. And this was a commission, and I just needed something that was soft and just supported the cats but didn't take over the show. And so this is a nice technique because it uses a lot of wet and wet techniques, so it stays really soft, but it gives just enough pattern to be really supportive. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I use clear water to create these effects. I call it my push technique. And also be sure to stay tuned until the end because I have a few fun little goodies at the end of this video. So be sure not to miss that. And also, if you are interested in learning more from me, you can join my Patreon for $5 a month. And we will be painting a Bengal cat next, which is behind me. I've started it. It's not done yet, but I am currently working on video footage to bring that tutorial to my Patreon students next. So I'm just going to activate my palette to begin my morning painting session. I will moisten my paper, and I'm going to spray my paper. Just going to continue moistening my paper a little bit. Painting carefully around these white spots that I've left. And I'm going to wring out my brush and I'm going to sop up some paint. Now I am going to paint this background with some stripes, and I want them to be a little soft, but I do want them to mostly hold their shape, so I don't need this too wet. I just need it moist. So I'm just going to blot a little bit. So I'm just going to use a mix from these new jars that I got, and I've been keeping some paint moist in them so that I can do quicker work. And I'm just going to get tea consistency paint in my brush. Let's see how much. This is still spraying quite a bit. Now I'm just putting very soft little stripes, and so I'm going to use my technique that I've showed you guys before, where I put clear water in between the lines like I do for tabby cat stripes, but in this case it's going to be for the stripes and the fabric behind the cats. So I'm just putting in some clear water, pretty drippy, just to create some interesting effects between each stripe. Keep it loose and interesting. I'm going to get a bit of ultramarine or a bit of cerulean to add some interest to these areas. My paper's already drying up here, as you can see, so I have to work quickly. I'm making sure that I use more than one color, just so this stays interesting. I'm going to get a little tiny bit of indigo, I think. I want a grayed down blue, so I'm just putting a touch of indigo blue here and there to create further interest and depth in these stripes. I'm going to go in with more clear water and push these areas a little bit more. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. This is the problem with this technique, and also its charm. You never quite know what you're going to get. The painting takes over and you take a back seat as an artist to what happens. And sometimes some very lovely and surprising things happen. Just like when the elements are allowed to create beautiful landscapes in our natural world, Water will do the same thing with paint if you just let it. And then I'm going to continue. See, this is getting too dry. So I'm going to run some clear water over that. Okay, this is drying. You can put some more clear water between these stripes to help the granulation process. And as these washes dry, I'll add a little bit of cream consistency paint. And this is getting a little dry, so I'm gonna spray just a little. Just trying to create an interesting but loose background. So I'm dropping in cream consistency paint into a half dry area. Let's drop in a little clear water so you guys can see kind of what happens. Dropping in clear waters in between the stripes right here to kind of push those stripes together, to push the pigment in towards the middle of each stripe, and also to create some interesting textures. You've got to work really pretty wet when you use this technique. So it takes some getting used to, it takes some practice, and it takes some just letting go and let the paint do what it wants to do. And sometimes that's not so easy for some of us. Okay, now I'm gonna spray over here with my spray bottle, but I'm gonna mask this area off with my hand so the spray doesn't get into the area that I already did. It's almost too wet though. Let's do a little bit of blotting. Just a little. These stripes are kind of fun though. I'm going to go in with my clear water and a tiny little bit of green gold. I'm going to go in with some indigo blue now. Just a little bit too much water. I want more cream consistency here. I think this is too yellow in here, so I'm going to just soften that up a little with some clear water and kind of sponging it up with my brush. So I'm going to go in with my clear water between the stripes again. I'm just going in with some more clear water so I can continue on. I'm just using interesting paints, I think, that will granulate in an interesting way. It's kind of my thinking, what I'm doing. And like I said, my technique is kind of more hold your breath and see what happens. I'm not a painter who's like trying to be overly controlling of the process. I want to see what the watercolor wants to do. And sometimes that can go awry, and you just have to accept that sometimes you're not going to have control with these kind of techniques. If you're okay with this, you might enjoy my approach. If you're game for that, you might enjoy following me. You might enjoy my Patreon group, because I'm hoping to make that journey with my students. I'm learning too. And sometimes that means failed paintings. I'm doing things that don't always work. These stripes might make me regret my existence here on Earth. And this is a commission, so I am definitely taking a risk, doing something a little more experimental on a commission. All right, so these are very nice and soft. I really like that effect. They might be a little too bright though, because I don't want the cats to disappear. So we'll see how that dries. But I just think that is very lovely and soft. And I think it's going to granulate out really pretty. These are really, you got to let it dry a certain amount before you put the water between the stripes. Otherwise you'll just have one big blobby mess. So you kind of have to keep playing with it. Also, stop when you think you have enough. All right, so I'm just painting more clear water between the stripes to kind of push all that pigment the stripes together more, and then make more delineations hopefully. In review, the things I want you to keep in mind if you're trying this push technique is to keep your paper moist, and you want to keep reworking in the stripes until your paper is dry. And if you want to keep reworking the stripes, just spray your paper or use water from your brush to keep everything moist until you're happy with how dark everything is. And remember that as watercolors dry, they will lighten a little bit. And another thing to remember is that you should use granulating color to get the best effect from this technique. And granulating watercolors can include Winsor green gold, ultramarine blue, cerulean blue, burnt sienna. Those are probably my favorite granulating paints. Those aren't certainly the only ones, but those are the ones that are my favorite. Okay, you guys, I hope you found this video to be helpful, and please be sure to like this video, leave me a comment, and subscribe because I do upload new videos every week. Thanks everybody. Bye.
Meow, 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 meow.